Hey y'all, welcome to Gatblood, a podcast about third parties, fringe candidates, and generally weird American electoral history. I'm Dusty Olson.
I'm Una O'Leary.
And first off, we just gotta out the gate talk about a fuck ton of third party news that's been going down.
Oof.
I don't know
Hit me
what
with it.
I don't know what it is, but it was between our last episode and today, which is Super fucking Tuesday. A good handful of third parties have decided to announce who they're running for president. And we're gonna get deep into that later for later episodes. It's not time for it now, but I figured we should at least bring it up that it's happening.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
This is
so
like your
sorry,
full moon turned into a werewolf kind of thing.
right? It's
The
oh my,
podcast is happening while the Super Tuesday is occurring.
it's I'm gonna turn into a chart. It's gonna be great.
Yes.
So to kick it off, we got to talk about the Socialist Workers Party. They have nominated hotel worker Rochelle Fruit of Florida for president and Ghirardelli factory worker Margaret Crowe of California for vice president.
We love to see it.
The general gist behind the Socialist Workers Party is like if you had a Venn diagram of all the different circles and you had a circle for like Fidel Castro, but also for Zionism, then they're for you.
Oh.
Yeah, if you're a socialist but also a Zionist, they're the one option.
Well, okay. For those listening.
It's not opinions. We'll cover it when we get to the episode.
Yeah.
And then we have the Socialist Equality Party.
Oh, okay.
One of it's two of the six socialist parties in America have announced their nominees. So they nominated the National Party Secretary Joseph Kishore of Michigan for president.
Michigan.
And journalist at the party newspaper Jerry White, also of Michigan, for vice president.
All right.
And then we have Super Tuesday being today. There are two third parties that have their presidential primaries tonight. In Minnesota, the Legal Marijuana Now party has gotten big enough that they're allowed to have a presidential primary on the ballot.
Hey.
We'll cover it because there's a lot of great people running. One of the best is a guy who had his name legally changed to New Jersey Weed Man.
That's a commitment.
It really is. But the other candidate of the five that are on the ballot is a little fellow by the name of Vermin Supreme. So goddamn it, Minnesota. I really hope you don't depress me tonight because Vermin Supreme deserves to win a fucking primary once in his life.
Show him that niceness that you all are known for.
Fucking see. Well, it's a lot,
Maybe
but
some
still.
lingonberry. Yeah, okay. Not like Coen Brother nice, like nice.
Right. It's a lot like Austrian nice, as Christoph Waltz describes it, where the step one of Austria is everyone is polite, and step two is they don't mean it.
Yeah, that's the Midwest sometimes.
And the other primary held tonight in California, the Peace and Freedom Party, who's been around since the 60s, used to be a pretty big name, and now they're pretty much just on the ballot in California, are having their primary between Cornel West, Claudia de la Cruz of the Party of Socialism and Liberation, and Jasmine Sherman of the Unicorn Party, who's also running for the Green Party.
Oh my goodness, so much double dipping.
So the Peace and Freedom Party has stated that today's primary is not going to mean anything to them. They're going to nominate who they want to nominate, but it's fun to keep an eye on it.
And also, like, come on, get a better attitude about this.
Right. I mean, it's the only state that you're in. Fucking just accept the results and move on.
Yeah.
So with that out of the way, that's a lot of stuff for us to talk about in the future. But we got to get back to talking about good old Eugene Debs.
We got to deb it up.
Part 3. Y'all waited a week while I got my mouth fixed. So we're just gonna dive right in after all of this news.
Now we're talking extra purdy.
Right. It is very, very nice to have, my bottom teeth straight again. So, huge win. So when we last left Eugene, he had created the American Railway Union in an attempt to get all of the individual railway job unions under one umbrella. And it sort of worked. He got sizable numbers, but faced heavy resistance from the various brotherhoods who did not like the idea of losing power. However, the Pullman strike would be the ARU's undoing, and after stonewalling from the Pullman Company and violent federal government intervention, the strike failed. Not only that, but Eugene and the other heads of the ARU were arrested on charges of violating an injunction dictated by the Supreme Court, which told them to cease encouraging people to join the strike and the boycott, and conspiracy to block the delivery of mail. So that's where we get to, is the court cases.
Dun dun.
Which,
We've done the law. Now we need the order.
Right. This should be the part that is the most exciting, but it's also kind of the weirdest. So Judge Peter Grosscup ordered the trial to start on January 8th of 1895. And he also ordered for Eugene to turn himself in at the McHenry County Jail in Woodstock, Illinois, the day prior. So Woodstock nowadays is very much a suburb of Chicago. It's in the greater Chicagoland area. However, the court case would start off with Eugene failing to show up at the jail. However, he did have a good excuse and he sent a telegram on this. Turns out, over the Christmas vacation, because the judge was like, I'm not going to start the trial before Christmas. Y'all are allowed to have Christmas.
Aw.
But Eugene says over the Christmas holiday, he ate too many cucumbers and got sick.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had presidents maybe die from eating too many cherries and too much milk.
That's so fair. That's
So
so fair. Sometimes you stress eat cucumbers.
it's
Who am I to judge?
yeah, you become an Oscar Wilde character, you just down a bunch of cucumber sandwiches and you forget your real name and where you're from or where prison put the baby. And so yeah, so I don't know how many cucumbers equal getting that sick that you can't hop on a train to Woodstock, Illinois. But there was a small faction of people who were like, that can't be true. He's probably hungover.
That makes a lot more sense.
Right. Because the next day he showed up and there were no
Okay.
consequence. Yeah. So I think
Sometimes
he
you
was
just have a
hungover.
24-hour bug
Right.
caused by cucumbers
Right.
and a lot of gin.
You deep throat. Oh my God, that is the liquor that goes with cucumbers. Oh my God, you cracked the case, O'Leary.
He wasn't lying. It was just a falsehood by way of omission.
And so, being out in the McHenry County Jail, that is a 50-mile trip by train from Woodstock to Chicago that Eugene is going to have to take every day to get to the trial and every evening to go back to jail. This would
Forever be
be
reminded of his glory days as a runner and working for the unions of said trains.
Mhm. So the reasoning behind this, or at least the best that I could find, was, he had a lot of support in Chicago after the Pullman strike. So the people of Chicago in charge of the judicial system were worried that if they put him in the Cook County jail, then that's just going to become a focal point for protest, and it's become impossible to have a fair trial, and it's just going to be chaos. So you kick him out to the suburbs near Portillo's and I don't know, the last Dominics in the city.
Yeah, an outlet mall with stores you've never heard of.
Yeah. So for the trial, Eugene had gotten himself one hell of a legal team. In the last episode, we talked about Gene attaining Clarence Darrow as one of his attorneys, but by the trial, he'd also added future American Bar Association president S.S. Gregory. And Gregory began the opening salvo of the trial by trying to get 1/3 of the prosecuting attorneys kicked out of the trial.
Bold mood, Cotton. Let's see how it works.
I mean, really, it wasn't a bad mood because one of the attorneys was currently in the employ as an attorney for the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad.
Escandalo.
Right. And he's like, this is kind of biased. And Judge Grosscup, being a fair and balanced judge that he is, overruled the motion and said that the attorney could stay.
Damn it.
So, tagging Clarence Darrow to do the opening statement. And Clarence made a bold and accurate statement that there is no evidence that anyone on the trial had purposely ordered the obstruction of the mail. And he also noted that the conspiracy charges, because conspiracy to block the mail, were unfounded because every meeting of the ARU after the Pullman strike began was both held in public and offered invitations to the press for every single meeting. So a conspiracy had no chance to actually happen.
Indeed.
And finally, he stated that the ARU warned members away from violence and told members to allow all mail trains to pass through, even if the train companies had put Pullman cars onto the mail trains to begin with. The real coup de grace, though, was Gene's legal team had subpoenaed George Pullman to testify at the trial. And it's a fair request, seeing as how Pullman was the center of the strike. But George just outright refused to show up and testify, which is what's the word? Contempt of court. That's a crime.
A bad look.
And, in real person world, that's going to put you in jail. But in rich people world, no one gave a fuck. He just never showed up.
My God, I hate everything.
You say that now, but the court case had a jury, and the jury members were pretty heavily swayed by Pullman refusing to show up. So, with 4 days left to go in the trial, Clarence Darrow kind of was trying to read the jury to figure out what was going on, and it was in his estimation that the jury was 11-1 in favor of acquitting Eugene Debs. But then tragedy struck. One of the jurors got sick, and this was before a time of alternate jurors.
No.
So, with this juror now being sick, the judge decided to suspend the trial until about, I don't know, May. May sounds good, right?
Ah,
The thing though is the prosecution was pretty well aware that they were screwed no matter what. So they just decided to drop the charges and move on.
so that's it.
Yeah.
Our boy can walk away free.
Well, in theory, because that was only one of the two charges. That was for the charge of obstructing the mail.
Okay.
For the charge of ignoring an injunction of the Supreme Court, that's already been decided. They did that shit. And that meant that Eugene would have to spend 3 more months in the Woodstock jail, serving out the rest of his 6 months term.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So look, jail is jail. I'm not going to say that, some jails are nice and some are bad. It sucks no matter what to lose your freedom. But I would like to remind everyone of what the Cook County Jail was like when Eugene was there. There were rats so big that it scared terriers.
That's right. Yes.
People were often bleeding because at night they were being bitten by bugs and rats.
Oh.
Eugene slept, and the other prisoners in the jail slept on a mat of straw that was moldy and had never been changed since the jail had opened.
Oh.
It was not a great place. So it makes sense that Ray Ginger, the writer of the book The Bend and Cross that I've based a lot of the research on, notes that the McHenry County Jail was quote kind of homey. For one, the jail had just been built that year. And so it's completely fresh and brand new.
Oh yeah.
But two, Gene became very fast friends with the jail's warden, Sheriff George Eckert. According to Ginger, Eckert felt that Eugene and the other heads of the ARU were not criminals, so he was not going to treat them as such.
Oh damn.
And this was despite locals warning of forming a lynch mob that they were just going to break into the jail and hang Debs.
Jesus. What have they got against railroad union?
By this point, people are calling Eugene Debs an anarchist, and that's good enough reason to hang anyone. I mean, you saw things went Haymarket.
I think part of me is also thinking, it's like, damn man, Chicago suburbs have always been Chicago suburbs, like people are wiling out.
There's just a Moms for Liberty chapter that's always been there. And so the more laid back citizens of Woodstock and McHenry County said, all right, we won't lynch Eugene, but you should beat the shit out of him every single day.
The warden was like, no.
Yeah, I'm the warden. I'm not. Well, so here's what the warden did instead. To quote Ginger, quote, the 7 prisoners ate their meals with the sheriff's family, who lived next door to the jail, and played football in the street behind the jail and received all the liberty that the rules permitted. They were locked in their cells at night, but nobody took these formalities seriously. There were no uniforms, and each morning Debs placed a fresh carnation in his buttonhole.
Oh.
Which was so hard to not say butthole, because that's, but yeah, every single day these guys are wearing suits in jail and getting fresh flowers and just being treated totally fine. The reason that they also got to have dinner with the sheriff's family is that the sheriff's living quarters were literally built in with the jail. So it was like,
just yeah,
it's just the
that's
same
the way
building.
to the bathroom.
Right. And so now Eugene wasn't about to let a little thing like jail allow him to take things easy and, lay off the work for a little bit. Instead, he put fellow members of the ARU on a regular schedule every day. While in prison, they created the Cooperative Colony of Liberty Jail and set about a regular routine. At 6 a.m., they'd wake and start with an hour of military drills. In his military drills, because the sheriff let them use his own rifle during this time to practice shooting.
Oh, that kind of drill.
Yeah, calisthenics, shooting, marching, good morning shit. At 7:30, they had breakfast in the Eckert's dining room. So Ginger did describe the regular meals that they had, and I didn't feel like George R.R. Martining it, but it was stuff like, fresh roast, fried potatoes, milk. It's just like, just full tilt meals.
What is this? The Netherlands? Like,
yeah, jail is for you to feel bad, but also be rehabilitated.
Right.
The point of jail. So after breakfast, it was followed by hours of study in the prison library, usually on the topics of economics and history. However, Eugene would indulge in some Victor Hugo from time to time. At noon, they did an hour of exercise. 1 p.m. is lunch. Then after lunch is done, you study until 6 p.m. From 6 p.m. to 7, an hour of military drills where they're borrowing the sheriff's gun again. And then dinner. And finally, from 8 until 10 o'clock, they held debates in the prison.
Oh, wow. Not even like personal time? Some
Nope,
downtime?
No, there's no personal time when the revolution is at hand.
Okay, put down the Victor Hugo. Let's all take a breath.
And from what I could tell, pretty it sounded like every prisoner in the McHenry County Jail, whether they're part of the ARU or not, joined this cooperative and started working and debating with Eugene.
Oh, I mean, listen, it sounds intense, but also that is the guy was right. Like you need a system. And for everyone else is like, I totally would have appreciated someone else telling us like, no, these are the things you're gonna do every
Right.
day, like just so that you don't just like sit and stare at the wall and grow increasingly depressed.
Right, right. So jail takes away your freedom, but it can grant something to someone imprisoned for political reasons, and that's an increase in national celebrity.
Ooh,
Prior
yeah.
to the Pullman strike, Eugene was well known, but mostly just within the labor rights world. And thanks to the press, while many people were warned against Debs's rabble rousing, the portion of the normie population was introduced to Eugene, and they loved what they heard.
Hell yeah.
While he was imprisoned in Woodstock, Eugene had to hire a secretary to deal with the sudden rush of fan mail being sent to him. The local post office suddenly had to deal with not just with letters, but also a glut of socialist literature that was flooding into the prison. The secretary was also helpful in sorting out mail important enough to fill Eugene's rare free time, especially since he was now flooded with interview requests. And the sheriff was kind enough to allow Eugene to take these interviews in the family parlor.
Oh my goodness. What an ally.
But also helping out during this time was Kate.
Yay!
She had come out to Woodstock shortly after Eugene's sentence began and stayed in the town during his entire sentence. She also aided in correspondence and freed up time for Eugene to keep working on the ARU magazine, The Railway Times. A fun side note, though, is the people of Woodstock fucking loved Kate Metzel so goddamn much. During Jean's 6 months in prison, she had made friends with multiple townsfolk and was treated with a level of dignity that she clearly wasn't offered in Terre Haute. People there described her in terms equal to of an Amazonian philosopher rather than some hulking hermit shrew. And in my view, Kate had the greatest effect of turning the townsfolk from wanting to kill Eugene to actually loving the man.
Yeah. Oh, she made, I mean, I'm still hung up on the fact that she made friends.
Yeah, it's
This
probably the
is why you
happiest
got to
ending.
get out of Indiana. It
Right?
doesn't matter the century, the reason, just get out,
Yeah. If
come to
people are saying
Illinois.
you're like an introverted shrew, come to Chicago, even the fucking
Yeah,
suburbs. You will find people who adore you for who you are.
we're here. We like you.
Yeah. And sure, Eugene was still working hard in prison, but he was about to be the subject of a movement working just as hard to get him on their side. Eugene was about to become target number one of the socialist movement. One of the more popular socialists of the time, a German immigrant by the name of Victor Berger, visited Eugene. And it was a pretty simple trip for him, just hopping down from Milwaukee on to Chicago. And the two talked for hours. And Berger gave Gene a copy of Das Kapital. Gene tried to read it, but he found it too boring to finish, so he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, those German texts are really dense, even translated.
Yeah, it's like, I get it, man. I totally get it. I don't think he ever actually finished Das Kapital in his life.
Who has?
A lot of people say they have. I mean, I won't even go as far to say I've cracked it open. I need to. I need to at least try to figure out what's going on in there, but goddamn.
It's the infinite jest of social sciences.
Like, I've seen the epic rap battles of history with Marx. I think I get it.
It's yeah, yeah, good enough.
So on November 22nd, 1895, Eugene and the 7 other members of the ARU leadership were released from prison. It would be an absolute whirlwind day for Eugene and Kate. First, the prisoners of the Woodstock jail got together and all thanked Eugene for his empathy.
Oh,
Then, Kate led Eugene on a tour of multiple homes that had shown her kindness during her stay.
oh,
At the Woodstock train depot, a special train awaited Gene to deliver him to a welcome home party in Chicago, and he was met with a large crowd to wish him goodbye. In Chicago, 100,000 people gathered to welcome him.
oh my God.
Some people tried to carry Eugene away on their shoulders, but the crowd was so thick that once they got him on their shoulders, they couldn't move anywhere. So they just kind of held him for a bit. Some people tried to make a pathway for Eugene to get from the train to the carriage that was going to take him to the party. But when Gene got to the carriage and realized everyone else was just going to walk there, he said, "I'm not taking the carriage. I'm walking with people." And this is in November in Chicago in the slush
Oh,
with old old shoes. And he's just gonna walk from, I'm assuming, I don't know, Union Station hadn't been built yet, but he's going to Michigan Avenue in Monroe. So right in the
Okay.
fucking right
Yeah.
near the lake. And he's gonna walk in the slush in terrible shoes until he gets to the lake where the wind chill is probably -40. But that's what he ends up doing is he ends up walking with the throng in winter slush all the way to the party, which was held at the Battery D Armory, which is huge. It's kind of hard to depict how huge an armory is here in Chicago, but have you ever been to a show at Jackalope Theater?
Ages ago.
Yeah, so their shows are held in a small room in an armor, in an old
That's
armory.
right.
It's pretty much the entire block. And so yeah, so the armory is typically about a block long and multiple floors. So when he gets to the Battery D Armory, the place is packed, wall to wall people. It is so crowded, in fact, that when messenger boys showed up to deliver congratulations to Eugene, the crowd that was there had to crowd surf these children towards Eugene so he could get their letters.
Just as an FYI, this is a nightmare for me. Like that level of crowd. No, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, please explain. Please go further.
Oh no, I mean immediately I'm thinking of like the story. Okay, there was a story years ago about people being crushed, like I think during the Hajj,
Oh yeah,
and and it was like okay, the article where I was reading this, because it's one of those things where you hear about people like there are too many bodies and bodies end up getting crushed,
yeah.
and the assumption is always like because they're moving and like maybe you trip or something or you hit a wall and the people
Right.
keep coming or something. And this one was just like people were just lined up, but then it's just that the people compact
Hmm.
and then compact further, and that's what literally crushes you.
Yeah.
And it's so scary. And then I hear these stories of just like, yeah, and then the kids were like crowd surfed up. And it's like, no, because there's so many people. I would just start hyperventilating.
Might I add, people are definitely drinking during this.
Ah!
People are absolutely fucking drinking. So yeah, so all this chaos, the governor of Illinois, Davis Wait, introduced Eugene to the podium, and Gene unleashes a demand for the male conspiracy case to be reopened because he wants the court to officially say that he is innocent of any wrongdoing whatsoever.
That's right.
It never happens, but I appreciate the gumption. And he stated that until this happened, judges could take basic freedoms away from any citizen that they wished.
Yeah, that's the real conspiracy.
However, instead of saying that unionization was the way forward to be able to defeat this system that was keeping people down, it was clear that the experience of the Pullman strike had changed Eugene because now he told people that the only way forward was by voting. Eugene, vote harder.
The collective like
Like, I
100,000
guess.
people like okay, yeah, meanwhile the women in the room being like get fucked.
Yeah, I'd like to, I guess. But
Yeah, that would be nice.
yeah. So the basis behind this shift rested entirely in President Grover Cleveland's choice to send federal troops and to approve the deputizing of very violent people as temporary U.S. Marshals to the Pullman strike. So prior to Pullman, Eugene had hoped that if a cause was just, then the federal government would just take his side and do the right thing and welcome the and come to the aid of the labor movement. The Pullman strike was a very good evidence to him that like that's never going to happen. It doesn't matter how good and pure your movement is. If you're threatening capital, capital is going to go to the government and the government's going to support capital every time.
Mm.
So the only way to fix that is get, labor leaders elected into the government until you have a majority that then you can help out labor.
Change it from the inside. And how did that go, Justy?
It's oh, we're gonna get to that a lot faster than you think. So the day after the party, Eugene and Kate began to go back to Terre Haute. However, they did have to make one emergency stop on the way to see a doctor. Eugene had shook so many hands that his wrist was swollen to twice its size,
Oh
and the arm muscles, medically speaking, were fucked into immobility.
no. Homeboy
So
needs an acupuncturist
it's
and a
he's just
brace.
he's so constantly sick because he's constantly working all the goddamn time. Like, I'm honestly shocked he never got he at least to this point he hasn't gotten malaria, but
Truly, yeah.
or yellow fever. He's like somehow avoiding that, but he got sick from fucking cucumbers allegedly. But so he gets back to Terre Haute, and the first point of order is to rebuild the American Railway Union. The problem, though, is after one summer, things were completely bleak. The rail companies were ruthless in firing ARU members, and some instituted an industry wide blacklist that was shared between companies to ensure that those people never worked again. Many people retained ARU membership, but due to being fired and not being able to find new work, they couldn't really pay dues, and Eugene wasn't going to kick them out because they couldn't pay dues. So the ARU was forced to close their office in Chicago and move to Terre Haute.
No, move to Woodstock. Damn it. It's where Kate could have friends. The
I mean,
people love you.
look, it's as they always say, always bring your work home with you all the time. So, to try to grow membership and get more money in, Eugene employed a tactic that had always worked for him before in the past, and that's going on a nationwide tour of local unions to drum up new membership. However, by this point, things had changed, mainly because people were pretty excited to hear Eugene talk. And it was people who might not actually want to join a train union. It might be people who run a grocery store or, I don't make puppets or something. It's like, he's not, if he shows up in a place, not just train workers are going to show up. And it's going to be pretty hard to fill a room of just train workers.
Yeah.
On top of that,
with puppet makers.
right, which is a terrifying union. But on top of that, the railroad companies had hired detectives to go to these speaking engagements whenever Eugene showed up. And if they saw anyone who worked for the rail companies at all, whether they were members of the ARU or not, the next day, anyone who was there was fired and put on.
Damn.
Yeah. There was like one story of Eugene getting like a small get together at a hotel, and all the train people who showed up went into different entrances at different times. And the next day, they all got fired anyway. It was just people constantly got caught.
Oof.
So this combination of people getting fired at every single event and people who just wanted to see Eugene talk meant that by the end, it was pretty much just normies in attendance, and he was not growing membership whatsoever in the ARU. Another familiar problem they were having, though, is that the ARU was in debt to the tune of about $30,000 or $1.1 million in today's money.
Oh,
To be fair,
damn,
no,
this again.
oh yeah, and to be fair, most of this expense was to pay lawyers for the trials that they had to go through.
Always the litigation.
The rest were outstanding bills to the magazine printers because they really couldn't pay them while they were in jail. Eugene went about this in the most Gene way that he knew how. He went to the printers and he gave them the deed to his home.
Did you tell Kate or?
Yeah, I'm sure Kate loved it. I don't know. Part of me hopes he did because that shows growth, and part of me hopes he didn't because that would break her.
I mean, at least you could like up and move to Woodstock and like
My
sleep on
God.
my friend's couch.
Seriously, oh my God. Kate Metzel's a gem. Eugene Debs is a great guy. She deserves so much better than Eugene.
Yeah.
And she could have had a wonderful life in Woodstock. Also, as for the lawyer fees, Eugene took on all the debt himself and promised it just pretty much gave a promissory note promising to pay them off whenever he could. And while in the past, all Gene really had needed was the month to get the Brotherhood back on track and was able to fix these things. But this time, it just nothing he did worked. Membership was anemic, and the money to keep the union or himself afloat hadn't come in. By Christmas of 1895, Eugene found himself stranded mid-speaking tour in Des Moines, Iowa, and completely broke. This ends up being the very first Christmas of his life that he did not spend with his family.
Oh,
On top of this, the trade brotherhoods took to attacking Eugene and the ARU. Sensing that the ARU was pretty much on death's door, they figured out that, if they could just knock them off, it would make them look really good to the railroad companies, and it'd give them the chance to have a monopoly on unionship. Now, whether that meant they got everything they needed for their workers or not, it typically meant that they would get, some minor victories whenever the railroads felt like they could, throw a scrap to the workers. But they were never going to go to the mat for any of the workers. And to make things even worse, the Brotherhood of Firemen that Eugene had saved all those years ago made a statement calling Eugene, quote, villainous, treacherous, and dishonest.
Judas.
It's it's really disgusting how these people were just like, no, we would like power. Power is the thing we want more than helping anyone, and we're going to do anything to keep it. Thank you.
Uh,
So this ends up creating a very unique situation in that you have a fuck ton of workers who are now blacklisted, have no chance of ever finding work. And since they saw the unions that did continue to exist now pretty much just bending the knee and just, making a lot of token wins, this allowed them to take Eugene's shift from unionizing to voting straight to heart. And
mm,
lucky for them, there is a brand new third party ready to take them all
mm,
in. So the People's Party was founded in 1892 after a merger between the Farmers Alliance and the Greenback Party. They also deserve their own multi-part series, and very nearly was the multi-part series I was going to do right now. Mainly because one of their founders was super into Atlantis conspiracies.
mm.
Yeah.
That's so quaint.
It's there's multiple books that he wrote that I need to take the time to read before I even talk about it, but it's wild. So we will
That's
get
my
to them.
book club.
Oh my god. It's yeah, everyone get an account on archive.org and it's gonna be great. So we are going to be doing a long multi-part series on the People's Party at some point in time. But for now, just really, really short cliff notes. So the party mostly was about, supporting farmers and we're big into agrarianism, or the idea that the most noble job in America is that of the farmer. And hence the farmer should be exalted in society. They're really big into bimetallism, which is the idea of backing the currency not with just silver or just gold, but both. And also they were very big into populism. So much so that the party is often called the Populist Party, and the terms are interchangeable. In the 1892 election, the People's Party stormed out of the gate. They ran former Congressman James Weaver of Iowa for president, and they not only won 8.5% of the vote, but they got 22 electoral votes in the process.
Oh, damn. Okay.
So, yeah, it was a huge movement right out of the gate. And heading into 1896, the party was destined for a huge jump. The party was even theorizing that if they played their cards right, they would be able to replace the Democratic Party, which, all in all, not really the worst of plans, because at that point, you had Reconstruction was pretty much done. The
Mhm,
Democratic Party was still only really favored in the South. And if you
mhm.
won a second party in the North or a major party in the West where the People's Party found most of their support, the lane was there, and they absolutely could have done this. So, going into the party convention in 1896, there were two people in particular who had a plan on how to push the People's Party even further. One is Victor Berger, who you might remember as the dude from Milwaukee who visited Eugene in prison, gave him a copy of Das Kapital, and he was like, "This is a great doorstop. Thanks, man." And the other was a dude by the name of Henry Demarest Lloyd. Henry had been a journalist for the Chicago Tribune. Don't stop listening. And
No,
had
wait, where are you going? Come
yeah.
back.
So usually it's not the best of signs, but he was a huge supporter of the Haymarket rioters and them getting acquitted. And after leaving the Chicago Tribune, he continued working as a freelance journalist through the Associated Press. So he was very, very highly respected as a journalist. And the two got together with the idea that if they go into the convention, they should do everything they can to try to get Eugene Debs to be the presidential nominee for 1896. The plan was Henry was going to be the one to eventually nominate Eugene, since he had all the fame and the respect. And Victor Berger would go from delegation to delegation to kind of gauge interest, but also drum up as many votes as he could. So on day one of the convention in St. Louis, Victor Berger's going from delegation to delegation, and found out really, really quickly they actually planned too much, because there were a multitude of delegations that were already planning on nominating Eugene themselves.
Oh, hey, love
And he
that.
found by the end of the day, there was an easy majority that would have given Eugene Debs the nomination.
Well,
So,
shit.
so all they had to do was get Eugene to say yes, because neither of them told Eugene they were doing this.
Ah, this again.
So Henry sends a telegram to Terre Haute saying, "Hey, you got to get down to St. Louis. I know it's your least favorite city in the fucking world, but please, it's very important that you come to the Populist Party convention and get down here because you could be president if you do."
Hey, stop. Hey, girl. Hey, stop. Hey,
Here,
baby, come to St. Louis. Stop.
winky face, stop. So they sent a telegram to Eugene, and Gene said he's going to try to make it, but also, I don't want to run for president or any political office for that matter. Previously, the People's Party had tried to get him to run for governor of Indiana in 1894 and 1896, but both times he refused. This time, when asked if he'd run for president, though, he replied with a telegram that said, quote, "Well, I don't want the nomination. I have absolutely no political ambition whatsoever, and most assuredly, I should not accept the nomination even if it were tendered to me." Stop. And yeah, this might sound like bad news, but Henry and Victor had done so much work already that I get the feeling they're like, let him sleep on it. We'll see how he feels tomorrow. And we'll telegram him first thing in the morning. On the second day of the convention, Eugene got a follow-up telegram informing him that if he wanted the nomination, it was all his. All he has to do is say yes and come to St. Louis.
Like
So,
you don't got to do a thing except for come to St. Louis, but
right.
then you don't got to do a thing.
Yeah, you would leave as soon as you want after you're done giving a speech.
Give them a little wave and then go back home.
Right. So he sits down with Kate and they talk it through. And eventually he responds with a simple telegram saying, quote, "Please do not permit use of my name for nomination." And that was it.
The telegram was stop. Don't just stop.
God, that had to be the worst part of being a Telegram person is just trying to figure out which stop is which. Anyway, so as soon as the news showed up at the convention, the Debs block quickly fell apart and no one knew what to do, except party leadership, who swooped in with their plan that they had all along. 2 weeks prior at the Democratic convention, they had nominated former Nebraska Congressman William Jennings Bryan. At this point, Bryan was a 40-year-old orator who had taken the Democratic convention by storm with his now famous Cross of Gold speech. Which are you familiar with that speech, Una?
I am not.
If memory serves correctly, it was it was a speech that, people wanted to use the gold standard for currency, and he wanted silver because there were a lot of silver mines that had been discovered in the West, and if they didn't go with silver, it would absolutely kill the industry. And so he gave a speech that said, and one of the few quotes I remember, "We will not allow America to be crucified upon a cross of gold." And
Oh,
people went bug fuck. It was such a huge shift. Like we talked about John Peter Altgeld last episode, who was governor of Illinois, really liked Eugene Debs, and he himself was trying to get more of a Eugene Debs type person, but friends of his to win the nomination. And when William Jennings Bryan gave the Cross of Gold speech, Altgeld was just like, "We're done. There's no way we're beating this."
I love that the phrase the barn burner was a speech on gold versus silverback. I feel like this is the apex that so many libertarians are after.
"I will not allow America be crucified on the blockchain."
Yeah, exactly.
So the most notable thing about Bryan, though, is that he held quite a few agrarian and populist views that made him pretty popular with a sect of the People's Party. And the People's Party leadership pounced and led a push to co-nominate Bryan, which was ultimately successful. Now, they did nominate their own vice presidential candidate just to prove they were still independent. But yeah, they co-endorsed William Jennings Bryan, and this kills the party.
Oh,
We would talk about this in a lot more detail on a People's Party episode, so we're probably going to gloss over this when the time comes when we get to that one. But there were a couple of things that made this just a death sentence to the party. First and foremost, the Midwestern branches of the People's Party were very quickly gobbled up by the Democratic Party, because if you're, supporting a Democratic candidate, you got to support the other Democrats who were also running, and more Democrats got involved in regional offices to the point that by election day, the populist regional offices were completely overtaken by Democrats.
oh man.
Even worse, the Populist Party members in the South. So in the South, they had created a bit of a very unique and solid plan. The Democratic Party in the South was arch evil levels of racist.
I was gonna say, yeah,
They
that sounds
they're
about right.
like Reconstruction ended, and they just immediately started doing the worst shit known to man. So you have the fledgling Republican Party that's down there that somehow is existing, and the Populist Party, who had gained pretty decent support down there through populism and agrarianism, decided to form an alliance with the Republican Party, with the idea that if they worked together, they would be able to ensure that not only will the region not become a uniparty system, but they'll be able to increase the, voting registration of black men. They'll be able to get black men voted into state legislature, maybe even to the US Congress.
Right.
It was a long-term plan that was honestly starting to work pretty fucking well. The problem, though, is when the National Party says, hey, we're supporting the Democratic nominee for president now, it
Hmm.
it just torpedoed the alliance that they had built with the Republicans.
Is this, we're all self-hating Democrats out there. Is this our villain origin story? Is this
It,
where it all began?
it
Like
might be.
all progressives being like, why is this always my choice?
It
It's
is it is
always my cross to bear.
it is really haunting looking at all the progressive third parties that almost made it, like the Nonpartisan League or the Minnesota Farmers Party or, the People's Party. Every single one of them got taken over by the Democrats at some point.
We're a big tent, Dusty.
I'm gonna eat this microphone. I'm gonna eat it. It's the only way. And so yeah, and so it completely destroyed the People's Party in the South. And to make things even worse, William Jennings Bryan didn't even win. So after the 1896 election, membership had cratered. They'd run in the 1900 presidential election, but saw support drop to 0.4% of the vote and no
Uh,
electoral votes.
uh,
However, Ray Ginger is convinced that if the People's Party had stayed the course and not nominated Bryan, then Eugene Debs would have never become a socialist because he would have had no reason to.
okay, but in the long term, was that the best outcome for history?
I mean, I honestly don't fucking know. I would love for us to have like a third party, even if it is made of a bunch of populist farmers. At least then we're used to the idea of multiple parties for the rest of the time.
True.
And the plans that they had for the South could have, I mean, that is a huge crossroads that could have been so fucking different for history.
Right.
Like a strong Republican Party in the South, which is such a wild ass thing to say now, but at that time that actually could have installed decades of normalizing, black politicians. It could have been gigantic for the fucking country. But god damn it. Also I don't agree. Eventually Eugene would have become a socialist. I don't think there's much that would have kept him from that, but we'll get to that. So following the election, all of the railway and labor workers who had joined the People's Party were once again politically homeless. That isn't to say that all of them had joined the populists, though, to begin with. In fact, some of the more radical unionists had found home in the theories of socialism. Eugene himself had been courted by socialists in prison, like I said, but it was the time between Election Day and New Year's Eve that he found himself to become a true adherent. Now, on January 1st of 1897, he would publish his personal socialist manifesto in the Railway Times. Quote, "The issue is socialism versus capitalism. I am for socialism because I am for humanity. We have been cursed with the reign of gold long enough. Money constitutes no proper basis of civilization. The time has come to regenerate society, and we are on the verge of universal change." And Ginger notes that Eugene's shift to socialism only came after he'd exhausted every proper option that had been before him. He tried to change things as a politician, but he found that industry and money would always control politics. He tried creating a strong union, but found that capital and government could and would destroy any attempts to improve things that didn't improve things for capital and government as well. All that was left was a new political philosophy that called for action by removing the power and advantages from capital. On June 15th, 1897, the 2 dozen or so remaining delegates of the American Railway Union met in Chicago and voted to dissolve the union. However, it technically didn't die. It was more of like a metamorphosis, if you will. It's just one of those phoenix cocoons that turns into something. I don't know what phoenixes do. They like their
Yeah, how
ashes
do they
and their
start?
phoenix.
Yeah, it's like you always hear about the fire, but like,
Yeah.
so where's
What
the
is
egg? What
what is
happened?
the pupal stage of the phoenix?
Yeah, is it the flame? I don't know.
I mean, that'd be wild. So instead, what they decided to do was, from the wreckage of the Union, was create a brand new political party dubbed Social Democracy of America. Debs was named the chairman, his fellow ARU cellmates were named to the board, and the Railway Times was renamed to the Social Democrat. They then released a party platform advocating for public ownership of utilities, public ownership of monopolies, shorter workdays, a public works program for the unemployed, and a plan for Western colonialism.
Oh,
Now, colonialism today has a metric fuck ton of awful history and connotation. And the term, colonialism for this probably isn't the one they should have run with in retrospect, but it is kind of what they're doing. So the closest thing to modern time that I could compare it to is the very shitty American Redoubt, where a bunch of neo-Nazis decided they were going to move to Idaho and Oregon and Montana and just take over small towns and eventually just create a haven for racist bullshit. And Weirdly enough, that's what socialists were planning on at the time, is that they would move out to the West where the population wasn't that big. They would start their own towns that would have a socialist government. And when other people saw how well these towns were thriving, it would cause people to change their minds and move over to socialism. Or plan B, they would just keep founding these towns until the population was big enough that they could start electing state reps and state senators and then just take over the state through government means.
Okay, okay.
As a concept, it's ambitious, if I'm being nice. Over the next year, members of the new party would end up splitting on this idea, which can only mean one thing, especially in the world of leftism. It's socialist infighting, motherfuckers. Pick a side, split her off. It's time to fucking have fun.
Oh, you split and you think you're safe? Nope, split again.
Yeah, you think you'd fire me? I'm hiring myself and bringing 10 people. We're a party now. So in the summer of 1898, the Second Social Democracy Convention kicked off with everyone just getting into a huge fight. On one side, you have the colonists, and on the other side, you have the people who support electoralism. The fighting was fierce, and Eugene stood aside during all of it because, he personally supported electoralism, but he didn't want to sway the debate, and he knew if he said something, it would just, no one would say what they really felt. Victor Berger led the voting side and noted that colonialism was doomed to fail. The previous year, the colonialism movement had only been able to raise about $2,500 or $93,000 in today's money, which isn't enough to buy a house in most places, let alone start a town.
Yeah, I'm loving trying to square these socialist utopias with the rugged individualism that we all know the West to be.
Yeah. Unknown to Berger, the colony movement had already set up their first town in Skagit County, Washington, and it was already awash with infighting. If predominantly because colonists were told to live within the new town called Equality, Washington. And it was very rundown housing because there wasn't a lot of money there and not a lot of people were very good at building homes. But all of the town founders and higher ups lived the next town over in pretty decent houses.
Oh, God damn it, guys.
Yeah. Side note, equality would end up existing for another decade. They end up working that out where the colonists living in the town voted out the town leaders who were living the next town over. But eventually it did end up dying due to arson. Someone burned down the town warehouse and they just didn't have the money to replace all the food and supplies.
Ooh.
So it did fine, but I hate to be callous about it, but if a little arson destroys your town completely, I don't know how many years you had left. So that said, when it was put to a vote, the colonists won 52-37. And so Victor Berger walked up to Eugene Debs, and with the 35 other people who voted against colonization, they left the convention, walked right across the street, and started a brand new political party.
For fuck's sake.
Debs is already getting it. He already knows how to play this game.
Oh, yeah, he's been here before.
Right. And they found the Social Democrat Party. They leave Social Democracy of America and found the Social Democrat Party. The new party started pretty rockily, as things probably will. I mean, you're the minority of an already very small party, so things aren't going to be great. The party had their first headquarters in Chicago at the old Opera House. Rent was $10 a month, which is about usually $8 more than the party had in their safe on a regular basis. Theodore Debs, who's the little brother of Eugene, was hired to be the treasurer of the party. And so to keep things afloat, at the beginning of each month, he would pawn his pocket watch and then buy it back once his paycheck came in.
Oh.
This happened so much that his wife used to joke that if he lost his pocket watch on 66th Street, it would still end up at that pawn shop. And membership had been slow due to a number of factors. First, Eugene lost a lot of his capitalist friends, which included members of his own family. So he wasn't able to really financially push this thing forward as he might have been able to do with unions in the past. Second, Eugene wasn't quite ready to deal with leftist infighting. So not only were all the social democracy members never going to join, but Eugene didn't even realize he had just become the arch enemy of the Socialist Labor Party, which was the only Marxist party in America at the time. And we've talked about the Socialist Labor Party a little bit during our Lyndon LaRouche episodes. It was headed up by a guy named Daniel De Leon, who was, what's the word, a narcissist fuck. He viewed himself as the arbiter of socialism in America, and anyone else even trying to question him were to be destroyed immediately. And funny enough, during this time, Eugene still encouraged people to join the Socialist Labor Party if he felt they were a better fit, because he just wanted socialism to win. He didn't care who won it,
He's
just as
not
long as
here for the ego, you guys. He just wants a better life for everyone.
exactly. So DeLeon ends up spreading a lot of rumors about Eugene at the time. For one, he claims that Eugene is only starting a socialist movement so he can financially benefit himself, which, based on the coffers of the party, not happening. He also created a rumor that Kate Debs fainted the moment that she found out Eugene was a socialist, which we know not to be true because Kate Netzel's not the fading type.
Yeah, no.
If it, at most, it's she's a deep sigh type.
Yeah, she may have sighed, but also, went along with it.
Yeah, and Ray Ginger notes that her reaction was more just kind of rolling with it and expressing that, like, okay, it was, I didn't know how we were going to have money to begin with, and now that's even more nebulous. But fuck.
Do we still have a house?
Right,
Because
have you gotten the deed back yet?
is that cleared?
But Ray Ginger does note that one of the more unique aspects of Eugene, especially when compared to people like Daniel De Leon, is that Eugene still does not give a shit about socialist theory. It's still beyond him completely, and he does not care what you ascribe to if you join his party. And for me, that is a breath of fresh air. Because I'm sure there's massive differences between Marxism and Trotskyism and Castroism and Maoism and Ho Chi Minh thought. But for my dumbass brain, it really just feels like fan clubs for hyper-specific stands. It's just, there cannot be that much difference going into it. And it's this particular lack of care for theory that ends up vaulting the Social Democrats beyond the Socialist Labor Party. Because as I said before, Daniel De Leon believes that everyone should follow a very specific kind of socialistic thought. De Leonism, as it became known. And anyone who disagreed with him were not pure enough to be in the party and were forced to leave. And so a lot of people just decided, you know what, I feel like I'm going to be kicked out anyway, so I'm just going to go to the Social Democrats. And the movement was so big, they gained their own nickname, the Kangaroos.
Why the kangaroos?
Because you're hopping from a party to another party.
Oh.
In the grand scheme of things, not the worst animal to have.
No, all of this is great.
Yeah, and look, kangaroos are goddamn terrifying. They're like yoked chads of the nature world. And it's the kangaroos in particular that ends up bringing the party its first political success after a few months of existence. So election day in 1897 saw the first three electoral wins for the party, and they were all thanks to a socialist movement within the city of Haverhill, Massachusetts. Best I can tell, Haverhill is a mill town, so they had a bit of a labor movement to begin with, and these people who had kangarooed from the Socialist Labor Party brought with them a lot of cachet in the community. These people included James Carey and Lewis Skates, who were elected to be state representatives, and a man by the name of John C. Chase, who was elected mayor and was the first socialist mayor in American history. Which blows my mind. There's barely anything out there about John Chase. So we're going to fix that. The vast majority of info about Chase comes from the Lynn Daily Item. It's noted that he was a labor leader, and it can be assumed that he worked at one of the various mills in Haverhill. In 1896, he ran for Attorney General of Massachusetts as a candidate for the Socialist Labor Party, but lost incredibly badly. In his home district, he got one vote.
Oh my God.
So when John ran for mayor, he was very surprisingly considered to be a frontrunner. I found no reason for this being given, but they were like, he's a frontrunner, but we know nothing about him, so he's a huge mystery. So who knows where this is going to go.
That's exciting. Anyway, go vote.
But he ends up defeating all the candidates and becomes mayor of Haverhill. And on Inauguration Day, John gave a speech promising to ensure all work done for the city would be done by unionized workers, and that he planned on creating a public works program for anyone in need of a job. And he also promised to do away with rubber stamping low bid contract work. Because typically cities will just go with whoever bids the lowest to get a job done.
Mm-hmm.
And he stated, a quote, "Low bids mean cheap work. Cheap work means cheap men and low wages. And low wages lower the standard of citizenship."
Can't argue with that.
Yeah. So as for things that he did as mayor, I can't really find much of anything. I do know in 1899, he spoke at the state legislature alongside Carey and Skates in an attempt to make it illegal for factories to lock the gates behind their employees after they started working.
Mm-hmm.
Their argument was that it was humiliating for workers, but 10 years later, it would become an issue with the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, who had locked
Yeah.
their employees in. Then a fire happened and 146 women were killed. In 1899, Chase won re election, despite the Democrats, Republicans, and Prohibitionists forming a fusion ticket to rally behind a single candidate.
Wow.
The Lynn Daily item even notes that the Social Democrats had already assumed they were going to lose.
Oh,
But not only did he win re-election, but they won 3 seats on the Haverhill City Council and a seat on the Haverhill School Board. And the paper also noticed that it was the highest turnout for election that the city had ever seen to date. So Chase and the Social Democrats that time around ran on public ownership of utilities, establishing an 8-hour workday, and creating a minimum wage of $2 a day. So by 1900, the party had grown from a sad couple dozen people subsisting on Teddy Debs's repeatedly pawning off his own watch to 4,500 members across 25 states. The party had grown to the point that they were ready to do the one thing that drives major party people insane. They were going to run someone for president. And they already had local success, so that litmus is checked.
Yep. Well, that's always it. We got someone on the school board,
Mhm.
president.
Yeah. I mean, in state reps, no slouch. That's genuinely impressive. I do wish they would have gone maybe a little beyond Haverhill, Massachusetts for success, but take what you can get.
But yeah, here we are.
So on March 6th, the Social Democrats have their convention in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the New York delegation, who had led the kangaroo departure of the Socialist Labor Party, showed up with a bit of a plan. And it was pretty much a plan to ensure that the kangaroos took over the Social Democratic Party. That's right, we're already starting infighting. We haven't even elected a presidential nominee, and we're fucking doing it already.
Oh my God. The whole point was that everyone is welcome.
So they show up with their presidential ticket. They want to nominate California Attorney Job Harriman and newspaper editor Max Hayes. But before the convention even began, they gained a majority of support. The problem, though, is the original members of the party feared this was just a way for them to take over, and it was, and to ultimately push out current leadership. So they did the only thing they could think of to defeat Harriman. They begged Eugene to be the presidential nominee. Now, this was a problem because months later, Eugene said, "I am never going to run for president," and made it very goddamn clear that he was just going to sit back and whoever the party chose, he was going to support. So when they showed up to beg him to run for president, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, "Go fuck yourselves, no."
God damn it, Debs.
Like, I let a party die because I didn't run for president. I'll do it again.
Just step up.
And so for the next few hours in his hotel room, they try to convince Eugene to change his mind before hitting him with the kryptonite to Eugene Debs, the thing that always makes him do what others want him to do. They said that if he did not run for president, the party would die. And once again, it worked. Begrudgingly, Eugene agreed to run, and as a token of compromise with the kangaroos, he named Job Harriman as his running mate.
Okay.
Despite this outreach, Eugene got to spend the first summer of his presidential campaign dealing with the greatest tradition of socialist movements, petty infighting for scraps of power.
Oh, I'm gonna get ahead.
The kangaroos argued with Debs and the original members over everything. They wanted to change the name of the party. They wanted to change the party platform. They went to newspapers and said their ideas for the party platform that clashed with what was actually written down. Like, they wanted to make all business publicly owned. And Eugene was like, "That's not what we agreed on. It's railroads, banks, and monopolies. That's all we're doing. I'm not going to go after toothbrush companies. I'm just doing this shit." However, towards the end of the summer, the kangaroos started stepping back from the attack, mainly because Eugene is a very likable man. And the more speeches that he made, the more strength that the campaign started getting. And they realized maybe we shouldn't be trying to take down this candidate and just work with him to maybe gain some power.
Hey, if we stop stepping on our own dicks for 2 minutes, we might get some of the things we want.
Look, that was supposed to be on the platform, but we voted it down 57 to 32, and we just have to accept it. So the other thing that really helped Eugene in this is that he positioned himself as the only anti-capitalist candidate, because once again, the People's Party that barely remained had endorsed Democratic nominee William Jennings Bryan. Eugene also kind of made the unique move, especially for the time, of establishing himself as this weird thing called an anti-war candidate. At the time, America was in the midst of the Philippine-American War, which is a sequel to the Spanish-American War. And he had come out and said that he does not support the war. Also, he does not support the Second Boer War, which was taking place in South Africa at the time,
Mm,
which was a war between Britain and the Netherlands, fighting over who got to colonize South Africa.
not a great one.
To make things even worse, the major parties, noticing that Eugene was getting a bit of traction, decided that they were going to create some rumors about Eugene and publish them in their own party newspapers. The Chicago American, which is a Democratic newspaper, made the claim that the Republican Party was funding Debs's campaign in order to defeat the Democrats. It's kind of heartwarming is not the word. It's interesting to know that that tactic has been around since at least then.
Yeah, it's cute in that regard. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah, Eugene Debs is too radical for America. Other Republican papers push rumors that, any day now, Eugene Debs is going to drop out and endorse William Jennings Bryan, so you're wasting your time if you support him. Eugene did make multiple statements against both claims, but, the national papers were a little bit less interested in printing these rebuttals as they were printing the real fun, juicy shit.
Oh,
As for the election itself, it's probably one of the more boring elections I've ever read about. That like I said, the Democrats unanimously on the first ballot nominated William Jennings Bryan, despite him losing the first time around. The Republicans renominated William McKinley because he is the incumbent president. Really, kind of the biggest bit of news with him is he had to get a new vice president because his previous one died. So they picked in an effort to try to stop this rabble rousing politician from New York. They made him vice president. Is a guy named Teddy Roosevelt.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so pretty much the entire point behind the campaign is that McKinley was a warmonger. He was an imperialist. He had started the Spanish-American War under very shady pretenses, or at least as we know now today, very shady pretenses, and against a an enemy that did not have a very strong fighting force. One of my favorite horrifying stories of the Spanish-American War is when the American Navy first got to the Philippines. They fired upon a garrison there, and they expected people to fire back, and it didn't happen. Instead, a couple minutes later, a guy in a little rowboat just rose up to the American ship with a note from the commander of the garrison saying, "We appreciate your 21 gun salute. We would love to return it, but we don't have any gunpowder."
Oh, oh, come on.
The only American who died during the Philippine campaign died of heat stroke.
No.
It was definitely baby's first imperialism.
Yeah.
And so the Philippine American War was the after effect of that, of people in the Philippines being like, we would rather not continue to be colonized, but by different people. Maybe we should be independent.
Please don't.
Yeah. And so McKinley was very much for, expanding America's influence. William
Mm.
Jennings Bryan was against that. And that was pretty much the entire argument of the election. But we won the Spanish-American War, and people love victory. They especially love this like vice president who fought in the war and did a really good job. So McKinley ends up winning. As for Eugene, his first presidential campaign ended with an embarrassing 0.6% of the vote, which is like around 92,000 votes, give or take. But they did beat the Socialist Labor Party nominee, and for the Kangaroos, that is more than enough reason to declare victory. But to say the least, the election emotionally wrecked Eugene. And there's a little section here in the Bending Cross that I think I need to read directly from to really get an idea of how it affected him. So the setting is in Terre Haute, and one morning he goes to the home of his new socialist besties, a couple named Stephen and Jessica Reynolds. I wish I could devote more time to them because they seem rad as fuck.
Mhm.
And it was noted that they were like the two people that Eugene could talk about socialism openly with prior to becoming like a
Mhm.
socialist. And so one morning he shows up at their house. When Reynolds answered the door, he was greatly surprised to find Eugene Debs standing on a step. Debs was usually much too considerate to call before the family had finished breakfast, but on this occasion he seemed greatly disturbed. Accepting an invitation to join the family at the table, Debs began a halting account of a dream which had awakened him the previous night. In the dream, he was walking through a swamp when he saw a strange animal caught in the mire. The animal was struggling frantically to free itself, and Debs hurried to its aid. He tried for hours to extricate the beast, but his efforts were fruitless. Finally becoming convinced that a single man was inadequate for the job, he hurried to the nearby village and returned with another humanitarian, Stephen Reynolds. The two men toiled for the remainder of the day. Several times they had the animal on the very edge of the bog, but each time the beast made a false move and tumbled back. They even dragged brush to the bog to build a ramp to solid ground and tried to haul the animal up the ramp, but it persistently flopped back into the mire. At the day's end, the animal was exactly where it had been when Debs found it. Then Debs woke up.
Jesus.
Yeah, this is a pandemic nightmare, is what this is. And so subliminally, I think it's pretty clear that he knew the only way forward was the same plan that he had for the unions. Whether they liked it or not, he had to unify the entire socialist movement in America. Otherwise, everyone would keep just being this strange beast, humble fucking its way back into the bog over and over and over again. And uniting the socialist movement in America is a tall task. When you add a now in America we have like 5 or 6 socialist parties. Not even all of them run candidates, but there are so many different socialist and communist parties. The idea of getting them to work together on one thing feels like an impossibility. But even at this time when there were only 2, Eugene Debs decided he was going to be the man to do that. And that's where we're going to pick up next time.
Oh shit.
So yeah, thoughts, feelings on Eugene.
God. Well, I mean, so many things with this story is like, man, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like so
Right.
much of it just feels like, no, this feels very contemporary. All of the issues, all the concerns, the infighting.
Mm-hmm. It's, I do appreciate the fact that Eugene rolls with the punches so much so early on when he becomes a socialist that it's like, I want to say Victor Berger was probably like, look, this is probably going to happen. Get ready for it. I rented out a booth at the tavern across the street. We'll just start over. This happens all the fucking time. I both love and am thoroughly depressed by his constant optimism that he's like, okay, that plan failed. Now let's do this new thing and the new thing will work. The new thing's gonna work and I have to make it work. Otherwise, I have nightmares about pig beasts drowning in mud. I think that's the saddest I've been while reading about someone for this episode, for this podcast.
Oh, yeah, usually it's anger. Usually
Yeah.
it's a lot of anger.
And it's I think it's just because I keep waiting for that turn, and it's to the point that Eugene Debs is old enough that it's not gonna fucking happen. If he's going to sell out, it would have happened by now.
Yeah.
And especially with, Daniel De Leon and all the other socialists who exist. One of the things I cut was that when he changed the union to the Socialist Party, one of the big knocks against him at the time was that the entire board was made up of the board from the ARU who had been in prison with him in Woodstock. And they were just like, this is a sign this is just nepotism. This isn't going to go anywhere. This is just a grift. And it's like, those were the only people at the meeting. What are you goddamn expecting?
Right.
But it's just like this, it feels very similar to leftism now, where everyone's just looking for a conspiracy when it's just, there's so many simpler answers to what's going on. It could be incompetence. It could be that no one was there, so this is what happened.
Right.
But
Like, right. None of us allow ourselves the optimism that Debs has to just be
Right.
like, just like whatever conspiracy you have in your head, just put it to the side and let's all work towards this common goal.
right. It's so fucking depressing. And especially knowing that Kate Metzel had a town supporting her for half a fucking year. She got to be her true fucking self in Woodstock, goddamn Illinois, of all fucking places. And it's also just it's so wild to know that, a little more than 130 years ago, Woodstock, Illinois had a socialist sheriff who was empathetic towards the people in his fucking jail. And
really chill.
Yeah, it's fucking wild. And especially like you go to McHenry County now and it's just like rabid MAGA nonsense all over the fucking place. It's so weird how much things can change in a relatively short amount of time. But who knows? Maybe things will work out for Eugene. I'm sure, if we're talking about him, I'm sure things are going to get better.
Give me some hope, Dusty.
Look, I know he's not, I'm 90% sure there's not going to be a heel turn at some point. That, he's just going to keep trying. He's just going to keep being broke. Fuck. All right. Final thing we're going to bring up, because when he became a socialist, he decided he was never going to use a bank ever again in his life. And so he made Kate's brother-in-law his own personal banker, quote unquote.
Okay.
Where, look, Kate's brother ran a pharmacy, inherited the family pharmacy, so he ran it, and he was fucking rich. And so Eugene would like deposit his money to be put in a safe that Kate's brother watched over. And anytime Eugene would be in town and needed money, he'd just walk into the pharmacy and request money, but he had no idea how much he actually had. And his brother-in-law was like, yeah, there are a lot of times that, he owed me money, but I figured, fuck it, I don't need it.
So yeah, he's family.
What am I going to do? Make Kate's life worse?
That's chaos.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
stop it.
There was like apparently one
Invent a
day.
credit union.
Right. Oh my God. Apparently, there was one day that Eugene walked into the pharmacy, requested $300, got it, and then 30 minutes later came back and requested another $300 because he'd already given it away to people.
Ah.
Which, man, you should have just been a bachelor. I had to bring Kate in on this. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's it. I hope y'all had a good Super Tuesday. I guess we'll see how it goes here in a bit. The one thing I'm looking at right now in Vermont, the first state where Cenk Uyghur was on the ballot, the guy who founded the Young Turks, a news outlet that went from very progressive to weirdly turfy and conservative, has gotten 1.1% of the vote.
Okay.
Yeah, he has been beaten by Mark Stewart Greenstein, who is just a perennial candidate from New Hampshire.
Good for him. It's nice to have a hobby.
Man. Well, I guess we'll see you next week when we talk more about Eugene. Hopefully things get better. And we'll see you next time here on Gadfly. Gadfly is a production of Added Serotonin. Our episodes are edited by Brianna Valentine of Rem Alternus Productions. Our theme song is Sophomore Makeout by Silent Partner, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at GadflyPod.
Ready to level up your cosplay game? Check out the Geek Forge on Etsy. With a variety of props to give your photos that extra spark, you'll find just what you need. Hold magical fire in the palm of your hand, or take a potion to restore your mana. With a large variety of colors, you can choose your own magical flavor for your cosplay. Bring drama to your photo shoots with these vibrant props and more, all available at the Geek Forge. Are you ready to level up your cosplay?